Hello there and welcome. This is Cindy Ingram, and it takes about a minute to get everybody who is waiting in the waiting room into the actual room. So we are going to just chat for a minute while we make sure that everybody makes it into the room okay. If you can hear me, go ahead and type your name or I will say hello in the chat box and tell us where you're from or anything about you that you wanna share. We're actually going to have a pretty small group today because I kind of forgot to publicize it to my regular list. So I think we're going to have a lot of resource library members or several resource library members and then a couple people who purchase. So right now we only have 4 of us in the room, or 5 total, including me. So it will be a nice, good, intimate setting for this session. So since there's only a few of us, we will have a lot of chance to talk. This is a very discussion heavy session. So I hope you enjoy that. And this topic is such a nebulous one. So it is really easy to just get lost in conversation about things with no answers, which is kind of my favorite thing about it. So welcome. And Sylvia is here from South Australia. She sent me an email, and she is here at 1:00 in the morning for her time. So round of applause for her dedication. So that's awesome. I am in Dallas right now, and looks like we will ask somebody. Hopefully they make their way back in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the video so you can see me and know who you're talking to before we get into our session. Let's see. Turn webcam on. Oh, there we are. Okay, hello. All right, well, welcome everybody. My name is Cindy Ingram. And trying out a new lipstick, and it looks really weird on camera. So that's going to be really awkward for me. But thankfully, I'm not going to be on camera that often. I'm like, now that I see it, I'm like, I don't know about this. Anyway, totally off topic. I'm in a little bit of a weird mood today. So welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to talk about what is art. And every month, I am going to have these live webinars where we'll talk about some random topic. And they are for my resource library members, but I also open them up to the public. And you can purchase the resource library member or purchase just a ticket to the webinar itself. So I am very happy that you're here. And let's get started. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint slide and get started. So like I said, this is going to be a super discussion heavy webinar, as most of mine are, because I don't teach in a lecture-y way. So I do want to say just a couple things, actually, now that this popped in my head, is that I also am going to start doing weekly Facebook Live sessions on my Facebook page. So if you're interested in more art content, I'm just going to be throwing it all at you at the end of the year and over the summer, because I'm just kind of a little bit energized. So I'm going to take advantage of that. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, we will have a live session on Facebook. And so that could be a Q&A, it could be a topic, it could be maybe an artwork of the week. I think I'm just going to change it up every time. So I'm going to just post a link to my Facebook page on here. So if you're not following me, make sure you do so you can access those sessions. The first one is going to be the big topic that I always get this question over and over and over and over and over again, which is, why are you always putting nude artworks in your posts? I can't show nudity in my classroom. What do you do about nudity? So it's all going to be about nudity and how to teach that and how to address that in your classroom when it comes to showing works of art. So it's going to be a big one. And I have started that blog post. I've had this website for over 3 years now, and I keep starting that blog post, and I never can get through it. I don't know why. For some reason, I just cannot write it down. So I'm just going to speak it on Facebook Live on Tuesday night. So I probably will turn it into a blog post, mainly because I get so many questions about that. That's the number one question I get for sure. So just a little plug for that free live Facebook session every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central. All right, so I'm going to get my face off the screen, get the PowerPoint going, and let's talk about aesthetics. Okay, wrong button. my PowerPoint now, and for some reason, yes, Allie, that is this upcoming week. It is the date is 4 days from now, April 25th. Yes, that's when they'll start, and then they'll be every Tuesday from here on out. So Tuesday night, I will be talking about nudity, and then the following week, I don't know what I'll talk about. I will be planning that later. So I have a problem with this webinar thing. It worked before with my PowerPoints, but now for some reason to change slides, I sort of have to go in and out of my PowerPoint. It won't. Kind of awkward. So I'm going to bit of my window and stuff, but for some reason it's not letting me show these as they're intended for. I need to research that. I'm going to ask my husband to do that. Hopefully I'll remember. Okay. Okay. What is art? So we're going to talk about aesthetics. And to start, we are going to work together to create a collaborative list or of a definition of what is art. So I want you to go to that link, artcuratorforkids.com/what. But you can, an easy way to go over there is to go click on the offers tab in the corner or right by the chat. You see it says chat, and then it says room, and it says polls and offers. Click offers. It might have actually shown up on your chat. I don't know how it looks for you. But click on that link. It says go to Google Doc. And that way we can all work together to create a list actually in Google Docs. So you can go in there, and we should, if I have set this up correctly, you should be able to go in and add some tabs. Oh, good. I'm seeing some people joining the Google Docs tab. So it did work correctly. And then this is a collaborative document. So you can just sort of type in there your ideas and about this question. So I'm not going to have anything exciting happening on the webinar screen. So if you have to click over that, as long as you can hear my voice, you're not going to see anything over there, except for actually, let me share so that we can see it pop up on the screen as well. Okay, so I see some of you are in there. You should be able to edit this file. Let me know if you're not able to. Let's see if anybody types their first art. So what is art? So you're basically just defining art, typing your thoughts in there. I've never done this collaborative Google Doc thing on a webinar before, so I'm hoping it works for us. Not letting you edit. Oh, shoot. Okay, let me see. Can view. Oh, that's why, because I have it set wrong. Anyone at the link should be able to edit. Okay, I fixed it. You should be able to edit now. Try it again. And I'm going to type in this new link just in case. Hey, someone's on there. Yay. Okay, we got it going. Sorry, I am terrible with tiny details. I always miss one. I never know which one it's going to be, so it's always a nice surprise to find out which detail I messed up that time. All right, so what is art? We have creative expression listed up there. I'm going to add my own on there, that it had to be intended to be art. I like how Google calls you animals. We have an anonymous hedgehog, an anonymous chameleon, and an anonymous kangaroo. I don't know why, that always just makes me happy to see that. All right, what are some other thoughts on what is art? Our anonymous kangaroo has a lot of thoughts. Communicating. Ooh, Ooh, I like that. Communicating visually and with purpose. That is a really good definition. And other ways. See, there's always, she adds in and other ways, because there is always, okay. Oh, it's still saying view only to you. Click on this new link, Trisha, that I just posted right under your comment. Try that and see if that will let you edit. Because I changed the settings on it. Anyone with the link can edit. Yep. Okay. I have that set with the new link. I don't know if it maybe gave me a new link. Good. Excellent. Thank you. Yes. So click on the new link. And again, that's my one small detail. Hopefully it's my only small detail that I messed up for the week. Chances are it's not. Oh, good. Now we have an anonymous platypus who is typing. Excellent. With what is art, there is always, there's always a way to find a loophole. So it says, when she had typed artist communicating visually, and then I was like, oh, is it always visually? So then I started to think in my head, maybe it's not always visually. And then right when I'm thinking that, I see her type and other ways, because there is always some sort of something that change our mind. So art is a way for one to communicate their ideas. And I don't know if you saw in the chat, Carolyn said that she had to close out of the Google Doc and then go back in with the new link. So if you're still unable to type, try that. I am very sorry that I messed that up. Yeah, I see people leaving, and then hopefully they will pop back in. I like having a list, mainly because we're going to sort of come back to this. Is requesting. Oh, I got an email that says someone is requesting access. Let's see if it lets me let them. Oh my gosh, what happened? Oh no, there's something going on wrong. Oh no. Oh, self. You try to experiment. What did I do? Oh man, anyone at the Art Curator for Kids can edit. I don't want it to be anyone the Art Curator for Kids. I want it to be anyone with the link. No sign-in required. Okay. I am very sorry. Yeah, okay. Try again with my new link. And somehow everything disappeared. So on the file. Goodness gracious. I am very sorry, guys. I wonder if I can get back the other stuff because somehow it got all deleted. I'm really making a great impression right now, guys, on this Google Doc idea. We might have to just switch to we might just have to switch over to the chat because this is silly at this point. Okay. I knew I did something wrong when everybody disappeared all at the same time. And we're just going to give it another second because maybe, just maybe, it will work. No, it's not. Can we just move over to the chat? Because I apparently am not. It shouldn't even made you do a password. So if it's making you do that, then I have done something epically wrong. So let's just type our ideas into the chat, and that would be better. Okay. And I apologize for this. All right. What is art webinar? Okay. We're just going to go back and pretend. Let's just pretend that just didn't happen. So what is art? So we had on there communicating visually. We had creative expression. We had with purpose and some doing something visually or other ways. That was what we had in the doc so far. So if you could go ahead and just type your other thoughts into the chat box, that would be better, I think. Art is imagination and creativity. Good. What else you got? Okay, so since we have kind of a small group, we're gonna sort of create a list and in the chat. But I want you to kind of keep thinking about this and think about what your definition might be, and we're going to add to that. So you might, although if you don't have anything right now, there's not a lot of chatting popping up right now. Maybe we will get some more as we do these upcoming activities. So what this is, okay, this is an introduction to me, but I think most of you already know who I am. So I'm going to actually skip past that for today. Gosh, I need to work out this PowerPoint thing because that's just not as cute when it says that text thing. So what we're going to talk about today is what is art aesthetics? What is art? So we already kind of started thinking about what is art on our own, but we're going to test some of that with some aesthetic puzzles and thinking activities. We're going to talk about art or artifact. Is there a distinction and does it matter? And then we'll finish up by looking at some art about art that you can use in your classroom to spark some of these discussions about aesthetics. So what aesthetics is the philosophy of art. So it is questions, that don't really have answers. And so sometimes students can get a little bit frustrated because they're like, wait, well, then what's the answer? What do I write down for what is art? I'm like, well, I don't know, write down whatever you think it is. So it kind of frustrates them a little bit, but it's basically a branch of philosophy. And so when I ask students, I'm like, have you ever heard about aesthetics? They usually say it's about, they say it's related to beauty because anytime they've seen that word, it's usually related to like getting your nails done or things like that. And so aesthetics also talks about what is beauty and is beauty, what is beauty and what is beautiful? Why is art valuable? These are all different examples of aesthetic questions, and I tell students, like, you can tell an aesthetics question if it doesn't really have a correct answer and that it requires just a lot of debate and thinking. So Jennifer says a question comes to mind: at what point does something that was originally intended for other purposes be considered art? Yes, that is one of the things that gets me a lot too. And then that's actually, we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get down to sort of art versus artifact. That is it art if it was intended to be something else? Because we have a lot of, other things like, African masks, and we have, little jewelry boxes from, ancient Egypt, and we have things like that, but they were not intended to be art. But we put them in art museums and we appreciate their aesthetic value and their beauty, and they can move us and they can make us think that, is it still art if it's not that? So that's getting a little bit ahead of myself there, but yeah, we're going to definitely talk about that, Jennifer. And aesthetics is beautiful art. So yeah, the word aesthetic often is very much tied to this idea of beauty. And that's a great discussion to have with your students is does art have to be beautiful? I teach at a classical school, and we have this motto that says, I will learn what is true, I will do what is good, and I will love what is beautiful. And I have all sorts of problems with this motto. And I've told them before, I'm like, I don't know, because beauty is so subjective. And who am I to tell you what is beautiful or not? But it's fun to get into those debates. My old headmaster was actually a PhD in philosophy, so we always got into some good debates about like what is beauty and why are we telling students to love what is beautiful? Because what is beautiful? Like we shouldn't teach them what's beautiful. That they, it's a whole thing. Okay, so examples of aesthetics questions. It says, which of the following are aesthetics questions? So which of these questions on the screen would you call an aesthetic question? Which one gets to the heart of that philosophy? And this is actually, I have a quiz question when we talk about aesthetics this is basically one of my quiz questions is, which are aesthetics questions? And I often will associate an artwork with it. Like I'll put an artwork up and be like, list 5 questions that you might ask about that artwork. And they have to pick which one is an aesthetics question or which one is not an aesthetics question. So looking through this list, what would you take out? We have, what is art? Why is this art? Which elements of art did the artist use? Who made this artwork? And what is beauty? I think we have a little bit of a lag today too, from when I ask the question to when y'all answer it. You can't see the list. You don't see my PowerPoint on the screen? What's going on? It's still the Google Doc link. Oh no. Man, I've gone through a couple different slides. Man, you guys, what is going on today? No, there's a list of aesthetics questions. Okay. Okay, good. Oh, wow. It's a bad technology day. That's all it is. Okay, now it's there. Thank you. I'm sorry. It's hard. I should probably have like another computer next to me that shows the webinar, but with the sound off, so I can just like see what's happening on the screen. It might be a good idea. Or have my husband watch it and send me messages. Although he wouldn't know what I was trying to do either. Okay. All right. Aesthetics is the philosophy of art. So yes, what is beauty? Definitely a philosophical question. It is an aesthetics question. I wonder if when I change the slides, if that's when it freezes up for you. So next time I change the slide, I'll ask if it changed. Other aesthetics questions from this list. What is art, obviously? And why is this art? So looking at an artwork and saying, well, why are we looking at this? Why are we looking at this in art class? What makes this art? And then the other 2 questions, which elements of art and who made this artwork? Not aesthetics questions because they have correct answers. So sometimes students can get a little bit frustrated. So let's move on to talk about some of our aesthetics puzzles. So one of the things, I'm going to go back. Allie says all are aesthetic questions. So who made this artwork has a correct answer. And aesthetics is about philosophy. So we can't necessarily debate who made the artwork. So that makes it not aesthetics. So aesthetics is really just about philosophy. And so it's if it's something we know for sure, like we know that artist used the color red. I mean, I guess if we really get down into it, and we can talk about like how we all see red differently, and that who knows what we actually see in our eyes, that sort of thing. That would change it. But really, questions with no answers, and questions that are related to sort of the definition of art, the value of art, those are philosophy. So why do you think it's important that we talk about this with our students? Do you think we need a definition of art? And is this something that we need to talk about with our students? I changed the slide, so let me know if you don't see the slide change. Why or why not? So do we need a definition of art? What do you think? So back up any of your thoughts with sort of your reasoning and for saying yes or no. And I personally always did, it was the very first thing I did when I taught community college, was sort of a what is art thing, mainly because I just really love debating stuff. And I think it's fun. And it sort of opens up this idea that, what you're looking at is different depending on who you're looking or who's looking at it. And so I really stress with my students that that everybody's viewpoint on an artwork that we're looking at or a question that I pose is valid and important. And so starting out with aesthetics, even though maybe we don't need a definition of art, maybe it's just too broad and that it's hard to come up with, that it opens up this sort of class culture, I think, that all viewpoints are accepted and acknowledged, and that often in times art does not have right and wrong, and that it's nebulous, and that it can be kind of frustrating. And that I think starting out that way, getting that into the kids' minds at the very beginning, I think is really valuable. So especially in my upper grades, I think it's really fun, whether or not we actually need one. I think it's a good teaching tool to start out the year with. So we have here, talk about it with very little boundaries. I think Tricia is exactly right that, if we limit kids to, okay, this is what art is. And I'm going to go back to my school again, that we had to watch this video in training about what is beauty and how basically art has been crap since the Dada art is ruined it, and that everything since then has just been ugly and it's not valuable and it's not important. And I was like, oh my gosh, I disagree with so many of these things. We watched this doc, it was just terrible. I was just sitting there like getting madder and madder as I was watching the video. I had so much to say at the end of it. But that, hearing, keeping those out, hearing other responses like Trisha saying, thinking outside of the box, and stuff like that. And I like to what Carolyn and Allie are saying too, that, students should know why we make art. And then, good and bad art is sort of up to debate. And, it can be art, but it can be kind of crappy art at the same time. So I don't know. It's a fun discussion to have. So what we're going to do is go through some aesthetic puzzles. So I switched the slide again. So make sure what you see is puzzles about art, erase de Kooning. And this is how I teach aesthetics. Basically, I have students write an essay, my upper school students and my, college students. I would have them write it down for themselves first. With younger kids, we would just maybe have a little discussion and they would share their thoughts. I don't know that I would have them write a what is art essay. I don't think they're that's necessary or needed at at a younger age. And then I will pose this question. And I have done this with middle school, high school, and college, and it's all been fun discussion. So the youngest I've done this with is 7th grade. Um, so here's the story. So you might have already started reading it. That when Robert Rauschenberg, pop artist, was younger, he was well known, but he wasn't quite the Bob Rauschenberg that he ended up being. But he asked William de Kooning to participate in one of his art projects, and William de Kooning at the time was more established and more famous as an artist. He was selling art and that sort of thing. He agreed, and Rauschenberg asked him for one of his drawings. And de Kooning's drawings are very elaborate, and chaotic, and they're used. It's a lot of thick, heavy materials: pencil, heavy crayon, ink, graphite. It wasn't just like a pencil drawing. And then Rauschenberg then spent 1 month erasing the drawing completely. It took him that long. And there it is on the screen. That is the erased de Kooning drawing. So he placed it in a frame, gave it a title, Erased de Kooning, and then he exhibited it as his own artwork. So it's called, Robert Rauschenberg, Erased de Kooning, 1953. So tell me, do you think that this is art, that this end result here, and why or why not? And these, we're going to do a couple of these aesthetic puzzles, and they are adapted from a book called Puzzles About Art from 1989. And I think I have a link to the book here. Oh, no, I don't. I thought I had one. I had a link to the book already yesterday, and I forgot to put it in the offers. If you're interested in it, it's a book with tons of these, and it's out of print, so it's only like $5 on Amazon. So is this art? I'm pulling a link to this real fast. Oh, well, it was $5 yesterday. Now you can get a new one for $800. Amazon is ridiculous. Okay, so is this art, and why or why not? Okay, so we've got our first thing here that is going to cause some debate. So Trisha says she's going back and forth because but in the end, she's leaning towards art because it is an expression and it's an idea. So one of the main sort of points of contention, points of discussion, and this is what I would add to the Google Docs if the Google Doc thing had worked out, is art the idea or is art the end result? So, and the end result here is a blank piece of paper. So, it's sort of the process versus product type of situation. Is it the original idea? Is it the create? Well, actually, there's three. So the idea, then the process, then the product. So yeah, it's interesting. And Allie's noticing that there is he didn't succeed completely. There are still little marks. I'd love to see this in person because I think it's in San Francisco at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, I believe is what collection it's in. And I would love to see it in person because I want to see like what you can see because this image doesn't give us a lot of information. So it's the expression of the idea. So you're saying, yes, it is art. Now, is the de Kooning drawing that was originally created still art? Even though it doesn't exist anymore? Oh, and Jennifer asked another question too is, and one of the other aesthetic puzzles gets at this same question is, do we have to have the story for it to be art? We might not understand what the story is, but like, do we have to know the story for it to be art? So maybe is it only art if you know the story? And what if he never told anybody the story? Although the story is kind of implied in the title. What if he had titled it something completely different and just put that up? There's another aesthetic puzzle is going to get at that story part too. Like, does the story make it art? The story behind it. And the de Kooning's drawing still is art, even though it no longer exists. Yeah, because all of the art that was sort of destroyed in World War II, which Jennifer had just posted in our resource library Facebook group about a documentary about all the art that was destroyed in World War II and in the attempt to save the art and stuff like that. So that art is still art, even though it doesn't exist anymore. And some of it we don't even have a record of. But we know that it existed and that it no longer does. It still is art. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, my second question was, what is de Kooning's art still de Kooning's art? So yeah, it's one of those like, oh, every time you think of something new, it just opens up another idea. You're like, oh, yeah, crap. It's really funny to watch students think through this stuff because they convince themselves of one thing and then someone will say something else and you'll see on their face, they're like, oh, wait, no, I'm changing my mind. And so usually when I'll take a vote, at the beginning, like yes or no. And then I'll take a vote at the after. And then like usually it always changes. Someone gets their mind changed by someone else's idea, which is really fun. How I do this, if you're interested in doing this project in your classroom, or this activity in your classroom, is I have about 5 of these. And I don't know that we're going to go through every single one because that could take us, all day. But what I do is I break the kids into groups, and then each group has one of the aesthetic puzzles. And then at the end, we share their thoughts. So there's usually 2 groups per puzzle, which is fun because sometimes, the groups will disagree. One group will have said yes and one group will have said no, which causes some good discussion. And then, they share their thoughts and then I open it up to the class. I'm like, well, is there anything they left out or any questions you still have? Oh, that is an awesome question, Carolyn. I don't know. That would be really great. Did Robert Rauschenberg video himself erasing de Kooning? That would be, that's a whole other thing. That would be amazing. Oh, there's a video of him talking about it, which we can watch later because I don't want to waste our time with it. And it's 4 minutes long, but I'm going to put the link in here so you can watch it later if you're interested. Ooh, that's so cool. I didn't know there was a video. Oh my gosh, I can't find my webinar tab. There it is. So this will give you some more information if you want to save that link for later. That's cool that he talked about it. I've never seen that before. That's going to add a whole other cool dimension to talking about this in my classroom. So in the end, the questions that this one brought up are product versus process versus idea. And at what point makes it art. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. And I'm changing slides. Let me know if you don't see the next slide, which is the chimpanzee painter. And this one is basically the zoologist gives Congo, the chimpanzee, some paint and paper. And then the chimpanzee makes art. So is it art or is it not? So let me know what you think about that one. The public reactions were mixed. Pablo Picasso owned one of these artworks and hung it in his studio wall. They also had an exhibit of Congo's art, once at the Art Institute of Chicago And then another, no, this is the London Zoo. I'm thinking of another one. Sorry, there was another one. In the book, it talks about a different one, but I changed it to like this one because I knew for sure there was like a real chimpanzee. So, and then his art was sold at auction for $26,000. And then at that same auction, some famous artists did not even sell. So, what do you think is Congo's chimpanzee paintings art? And why or why not? I'm going to type some of the thoughts into the Google Doc, so at least these discussion points will be saved for you to come back to. Okay. I have too many tabs open. There we go. Okay. So, did I lose you? I haven't gotten any thoughts on this one yet. Or are you still thinking? Is Congo the chimpanzee's art? And are his paintings art? Not is his art because that, yeah. So it shows expression and it includes elements of art. So he used line or she. Does it say he or she? Doesn't say. I'd have to Google that one too to see if Congo was male or female. So it's aesthetically pleasing. It shows expression. Whether or not we know whether Congo was truly expressing any emotion or idea. And then it shows elements of art. So does Carolyn and Allie, you're saying, yes, it is art because of those reasons? Puffer fish make art. Ooh, I'm going to save that one for later too. Another tab to open on my. Oh, that's so. Yes, I am looking forward to watching this. Thanks for the link. Because there is when I went to the aquarium in where was it? Boston, they were selling like sea lion. No, it was was it sea lion art or dolphin art? It was sea lion art, I believe. Okay, so you're saying Allie is saying that Congo does have emotions and that he could have been expressing them. Carolyn is saying not entirely. Congo is a chimp. Yeah. So does art have to be created by humans, or can art be created by something else? So I'm going to write I'm in the Google Doc. I'm writing in discussion points so that when you do this with your students, you kind of have this list of, what are some of the main points that you talk about. So I'm putting created by humans. Oh, because that's another one too from the last one was Rauschenberg didn't create anything. He just erased it. So interesting. Okay. So he's a chimp or she. Another thing to consider is if this is art, what if Congo is not the artist? What if the artist is Desmond Morris of the London Zoo? He's the one that gave the chimp the paints and paper and came up with the idea to have Congo make the art. So is Desmond Morris the artist and Congo is just the tool used to create the art without making people upset that I just called the chimpanzee a tool. Just please ignore that if that offended you. That's another thing to consider. That goes back to the process versus product versus idea. If we say that art is the idea, then Desmond Morris would be the artist because he had the idea. But if we say art is just expression, then Congo does have emotions and may have been feeling them while making this, although we don't know. So it's interesting. Oh, then it's a print. Interesting. So the hand of, okay, now Allie, I'm gonna devil's advocate here you. So Mr. Morris didn't paint this. He didn't lay a hand on this art, although he did, hold this paint and paper and hand it to the chimp. But there is, with Robert Rauschenberg, he also didn't paint it. He just removed paint. So does art have to have some sort of physical process involved from an artist? Another example, like that sort of counteracts that, is there's a performance art piece by Yoko Ono where she sits on she sits on the stage and has all these people come up and like cut pieces of her clothes off. So there's like no product being made. And she just, so that's like pure idea. That's another one that you could use for this activity. Okay. So this one comes to the idea, and I don't want to, this is such fun discussions to have, like even with your friends, if you're like out having coffee or having drinks or something, you'd be like, bring up one of these topics and just see what happens, because it's pretty fun. It always leads to good discussions. So, but in the interest of time and stuff, I'm going to just kind of summarize some of the basic points that I am also typing into this Google Doc as we go. Does the artist have to have a hand in the creation of it? There's another one where the artist would, I forgot the name of this guy, but he would have like naked women like roll around in paint and then like push themselves up against canvases against a wall, and that would be the art. But he didn't really it was the walking around women that were doing it, but he had the original idea. So not necessarily one I would show in classroom, although I have shown that one in college classroom and they got a huge kick out of it. It was hilarious. They have it on YouTube. I cannot remember the artist. So does the artist have to have a hand in it for it to be art? And does it have to be a human that makes art? And we don't know what's going on in the brain of a chimpanzee. We're not chimpanzees, so it's tricky. Okay, I'm changing over to the next one. And I'm going to go through the next few a little bit quicker, but I do want you to share your thoughts. So, as soon as you have a thought about it, go ahead and type it into the chat. So we have a artist and a curator. They're at the beach, and then they are, walking along. And the curator of the local museum sees the artist on the beach and is like, "Oh, I gotta go talk to this guy, and I'm going to see if he'll give me some art, because, my museum doesn't have a lot of good art. I would love an artwork by this guy. I'm going to try to appeal to him. I'm going to see if he'll just donate." So he goes up to him and says, "I don't have any money to buy new artwork, but I would be honored to be given a work by you." So then the artist smiles, bends down and picks up a piece of driftwood lying on the beach, hands it to the curator, and says, here's your artwork. Call it driftwood. Gives it a title. Is this art or is it not? What do you think? So this one again, too, is the idea and the story. So Allie immediately says, "Is art created by nature?" And that is usually what students say. This is the one where God comes in, and they're like, "Well, God created nature and God's an artist, so this is art." So, and then I usually have to define driftwood because they don't really know what that is. But And then they get confused because they see the photo I have on the slide and they're like, well, that photo is really beautiful. And I'm like, well, it's not the photo we're talking about. We're talking about the actual piece of wood. So that's another just little thing that happens. So, oh yeah, like a spider web. There are beautiful things in nature. And then we always, this always leads to talking about like sunsets and things like that. Like, is that art? No one created it. No human created it. So is it art? And is something beautiful art just because it's beautiful, or something like that? So we have that whole discussion that kind of happens during this conversation. And then this one has the story. So like Jennifer had mentioned, I think it was Jennifer, yes, about the de Kooning is, it's the story about this sometimes that can make it art. So if the curator then would go back to the museum, display this, and make a label text that had the story, like that story sort of creates art. And then the fact that we're sitting here talking about it, then like if we're talking about it as art, does that make it art? Oh, someone's adding some stuff into the Google Doc. Thank you. So the physical process of making art, and then what did I just say? Nature. I'm going to put God in there. We don't get too deep into that because that can just go off on a whole tangent. the God conversation. Man-made, nature-made. That's a good way of saying it. Okay. And then also, does the story make it art? And then I'm also going to add, does the discussion surrounding it make it art? Because we're sitting here discussing the art, and that would work for the chimpanzee one too. Because we're discussing it as art, does that then make it art? Because we're sitting here talking about it as if it is. That's interesting. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. Again, we could keep talking about all of them for longer, but I want to make sure I get through the other stuff too. And each one, we could probably talk about each one for a good 20 minutes. Okay, so next one is, there's a guy, this is an actual artwork. Ben, I'm going to probably butcher his name. I'm going to say Vautier because I don't know. I need to learn how to pronounce French. In my field of study, I need to know how to pronounce French. But anyway, the Parisian performance artist Ben Vautier sat down in the middle of a street in Nice with a sign, and it said, "Look at me. That's all it takes. I'm art." So, and then he photographed himself in that position. And so he stayed there for a period of time, and then he left. So the question here is, one, is that true? Can he put a sign up on himself and make it art? And is he art? And is he only art for the time that he's there? Or is he art later when he goes home and he's sitting there like eating his like hot pocket dinner? I don't know, they probably don't have hot pockets in France. He's probably eating some delicious crepe or something. Is he still eating, or while he's eating his crepe, is he still art then, even though the sign is gone? Is the sign itself the art? Because that's a physical product. Does art have to have a physical product? Which then I'm going to add on here. To have a physical product. And also another thought, is it still art if it wasn't photographed? So, if he did not take this picture, was it still art? Is the photograph art, or is the photograph just documentation? So all of these questions that don't have answers, that just drive students crazy, that I just am in love with, it brings up. So what do you think? Is he art? What are any thoughts that I didn't mention that you still have questions about this one? Like what would you think? Is he art? Is it the sign? Is it the photo? Is it the process? So you think art should have a physical product? The students always want to know my opinion too. And what's funny is my opinion changes like every single time. I've probably discussed these puzzles about art. I don't know how many times, probably 20 to 30 times I've had this discussion with students about these things. And my opinion is constantly changing. And it's really fun for me in my head because I'm like, oh, someone always says something that changes my mind, that makes me think about it differently. I'm like, well, you know what? I hadn't thought about it that way. And that's what's so fun about these questions is that and you'll do it with one class and then you'll do it with the next class and it is a completely different discussion. Like they have completely different thoughts about it. It's just sort of like the culture of that class and those specific kids that makes it different. So it's just really fun. Just my ninth graders really loved this year. Like they just wanted more and more. Like they just thought it was great fun when we did this. So yes, should art have a physical product? Did I write that down? Yes. Again, idea versus process versus product. Yep. Okay. The next one, again, I'm kind of flying through the last one. I think I have, how many more do I have? Okay, good. This is my last one. It's already been an hour. I always over prepare for these. So, oh, I like this. What Carolyn is saying too is the process art too. So the process of making the art does that make it art? So not only, yeah, is the process art, and that's really true for a good discussion for like abstract expressionism and like the splattering of the paint, like the act of making an action painting, like a Jackson Pollock style action painting, like that process alone could be art regardless of whatever end product happens. So it's interesting. So here's another one. Carl, oh, that I never, you can't read the full title. Okay. So Carl Andre, a minimalist sculptor, created this artwork that's on the screen. It's kind of fuzzy. I couldn't find a really good picture of it. And he stacked some bricks and 120 pre-made bricks and arranged them in a rectangular pile on the floor. This is Jennifer, your question is so good right now because it is exactly what this one is going to talk about. Okay, thank you, Trisha. Sorry, we're running a little behind, but we will have. Yeah, you can watch the recording later to get the rest. Thank you for coming. So he took these bricks, pre-made bricks that he didn't make himself, stacked them on the floor in that configuration, and then across town, another guy who is building a brick wall is using those same bricks to build whatever his house is, and then he arranges them in the exact same configuration. He wasn't intending to make art in that case. He just was stacking bricks. So can two things that look exactly the same have one be art and the other not be art? So that, like, does the physical artwork end result have to have some sort of distinguishing characteristic of art? What do you think? And this goes to the idea of copying too, like if you copy a work of art. And I'm always surprised by student results on this one because very often they say that the bricklayer who does this the same way also makes art. And they call that art. And I always think, well, I would think that the students would say that Carl Andre's art is not art because it's just stacked pre-made bricks. So, yeah, like who makes it? And add that in here too. All right. Thoughts on this one? I know we're getting to an hour, and I usually try to keep these under an hour. And I knew in my heart of hearts that we wouldn't be able to get through the puzzles in an hour, but I still added stuff on the end because I always, overdo. I probably could have broken this down into 2 different sessions, but so if you have to take off, I understand if you have to leave. Okay, so the questions about this one are, who makes it? Does the artist have to actually do any creation, or is lining them up in a certain way enough? And then the fact that it was at a famous art museum. The Tate Gallery is a big museum. Like, that's a famous art museum. Like, does putting it in an art museum make it art? And having people look at it, I'll transform it to art, whether you thought it was art before or not. And then, like, the location of art, the location of it, does that matter? So, yes. So, and then it's not necessarily beautiful. And I don't know that Carl Andre wanted it to be beautiful. I don't know that he was considering beauty as a thing, although maybe he was. I think a lot of minimalists, saw beauty in simplicity. So yeah, minimalism is one of those things the students just have a really hard time with. Okay, so those are my favorite puzzles about art from that book that I mentioned. Puzzles About Art is what it's called, but that book is full of hundreds of them. I just took a few and adapted them and kind of changed them up a little bit, but yeah, they're really cool. And then the book also lists questions. I usually have. Oh, Sylvia, I love this. That means the way we set up our resources in our classroom is art. So if I go around and arrange things, in an organized way, does then that make it art? Oh, I love that. So, like, the fact that, like, this stack of Post-it notes, like, sitting here on my desk, like, that I chose to put them in that location. And then I have my monitor stacked up on 2. This is a great use of art books. I have my monitor stacked up on art books to make it higher, and I have my laptop stacked up on art books to make it higher. And I have this whole setup, this whole setup. Like, then that could be art, because if you agree that the bricklayer, stuff was art. So interesting. Yeah, and then the location. The one is the idea to make this art. He intended it to be art. So artist intent is a big one, which I don't think I ever added. I'm not sure if I did. Some of these kind of cross over on this list that I'm making here. Artist intent, I added to the list. Oh, and then location, another thing. And then, I was going to add something that was already on the list. Okay. Yes. Okay. So those are the puzzles about art I use. Again, it can take a really long time in your class. We could take a little bit of, usually we'll take like a full class period just to do this activity. As we've shown, we've pretty much only done this, and it has taken up the full time, and we've kind of zoomed through several of them. So it's really fun. Like, the students really get a kick out of this. And then as we go along, I have a PowerPoint slide or on the whiteboard, we'll kind of keep a running list of what is art, and then we'll challenge some of the things we originally had said. So did something we had said from the original discussion no longer hold up after having this discussion? Like, a lot of times people will put, students especially, adults don't usually do this, but the students will put that it has to have color, and then they're like, well, no, that's not right. So we can take things off the list and we add things to the list, and we kind of have this sort of running definition that we've created together as a class through our discussions. So really fun to do. Now, the next kind of aesthetics topic is one that I think it was Jennifer again at the beginning of this beginning of the section. She mentioned sort of the intent around being art. It doesn't have to be intended to be art. And then if its function was something else at the beginning of its life cycle, was not to be art, is it still art? And so the question of what is art is a very Western concept, because in other cultures, especially, ancient cultures, but also in other cultures around the world, art is more integrated into daily life, and that, the our art objects, which we would call art objects, and we put them in museums and we look at them, to them were more functional things. And so I'm not going to have you compare and contrast this, but this is something I do with my students, is when I talk about art versus artifact, I have two things that look very similar to each other. They're gold. They have, they're pointy. And then I, have them compare, okay, they're both very similar looking, but one is sort of on a pedestal in an art museum, and the picture doesn't show that all too clearly. I don't know where that's at, because no art museum I know would have that kind of drop ceiling. But anyway, it was probably at some sort of art gallery. And then the one at the left is like ancient swords, 17th century BCE swords. And so the idea of art versus artifact, that when we say what is art, are we having some sort of Western bias and creating sort of an us versus them mentality in a way, or not? So I go through that, then we define sort of art versus artifact, and then I just pulled some definitions from the internet of defining. So the Oxford Dictionary defines art as the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power, which is interesting because I like that we could even, another art activity after this is to take that definition and pick it apart and be like, well, is this a good definition? Does it cover everything that we said? And imagine the person that had to write that. How do they encompass all of that stuff? And I think they did a pretty good job, because they talk about creativity, they talk about expression. They say typically in a visual form, but they don't say it has to be in a visual form. Producing works to be appreciated primarily for beauty or emotional power. So it kind of gives a little bit of leeway into the appreciation of it at the end, which I don't know, is interesting. And then artist, a person who makes art. I made that definition up myself. I know that was a hard one. And then artifact is an object that was intentionally made for a purpose. So, it had some sort of function. It was a water bowl. It was a spiritual object. It was a object to be put in a tomb that was to be used for the pharaoh in the afterlife. It was a jewelry. All of those things are different. And then I don't like this last one. It says simple handmade objects, which represent a particular culture. Like that word simple, I don't like that, but handmade objects that represent a particular culture. So usually we think of art as art from our culture, the Western culture, and then artifact is art from other cultures. So that kind of adds in a little bit of complication with the discussion. So I'm going to show you an example of that in just a minute. And then an artisan is someone who is a craftsman and not an artist. So it's an interesting discussion to say, and it's also it's like a gender thing too. Art versus craft too. You can bring that conversation in. And these are all really good discussions to get kids thinking about their biases towards certain things. Like art is art better than an artifact? And is an artist better than an artisan? And why or why not? And is that problematic? So these are all just really good discussions to have with your students. So here's an example of an artifact. It was created for a function. And that's kind of when in my mind, artifact is something that was created for a function. And this is a mask made by the Kuba people in Africa. And it is gorgeous. I love it. Like the aesthetic value of it is just phenomenal. The colors and the pattern and the craftsmanship and everything. Like, it is so cool and awesome. And I just want to look at it all day, and I want it in my house, and I don't know, I just love it. So anyway, but I look at it and I see that wonderful beauty of it. And they did too. The people who made this mask, felt the same way about it when they looked at it. But it was created to be worn. It was created to be worn during dances and celebrations and ceremonies and rituals, so that so is it art then? And does it matter? Who cares whether it's art or not? It's just a really cool object. So, they usually are like helmets. Like, they have like this one, like if you kind of see, and I don't know if you can see my mouse. I don't think you can. You know what? I can draw on it, and then you'll be able to see. Let me find my drawer. Pencil tool. I don't draw on PowerPoints all that often because I cannot find. I'll just do a shape. At the back of it, I don't know, just the back of it. Okay, let's just make this real complicated for me, PowerPoint. Okay. Anyway, this back part, that's how I'm going to point at it. You can see there's kind of a hole at the back, and like this is like a strap, so they could stick their head in. It was kind of like a hat. A lot of these, what we call African masks, are more like helmets, and they would kind of wear them and dance around. And then some of them would cover their full face, and so they would have holes for the eyes, and some of them would just kind of rest on top of the head. So it's interesting. You can usually find some sort of clue that it is worn, because they'll have strings on the back, or they'll have like something adjustable kind of at the back to show us. But so pretty. I love that thing. Okay. So what this kind of question on the screen here kind of gets to what I was saying is, does labeling something artifact instead of art imply value judgment? Is art better or more advanced than an artifact? And I'm not going to have you guys answer that, but I'm going to show you an example of where that can get problematic. There is, and I don't know if you've been following my blog for a while, you might have already seen this posted. I have a post kind of that talks about this, but there is this guy, Kenneth Clark, who wrote this book, and I forgot the name of the book, but he writes in his book, comparing Apollo Belvedere, which is that on sculpture on the left, ancient Greek sculpture, with an African mask that was just at his friend's house. He was like, yeah, I was at my friend's house and they had an African mask up on the wall. That's how much information he gave about the African mask. So it's kind of really annoying that he did that. But anyway, he says, I don't think there is any doubt that the Apollo embodies a higher state of civilization than the mask. They both represent spirits, messengers from another world, that is to say, from a world of our own imagining. To the Negro imagination, it is a world of fear and darkness, ready to inflict horrible punishment for the smallest infringement or taboo. To the Greek imagination, it is a world of light and confidence, in which the gods are like ourselves, only more beautiful, and descend to earth in order to teach men reason and the laws of harmony. So he is saying here that, this mask is about fear and about darkness, and it's horror, and he uses the word horrible and stuff like that. And he doesn't even know anything about this mask that it's seriously at his friend's house. and he writes this about that. But art from his culture and his tradition, the beginnings of Western civilization in ancient Greece, it's like light and confidence and beauty. And so he's saying that they are of a higher civilization. And so this artifact is lower, and it's primitive, and it's dark and fear. And that this other one is not. So it's really interesting. Now, if you go and you read a quote by by artists from the Ball people who made this mask, they say, that the God is a dance of rejoicing for me. So when I see the mask, my heart is filled with joy. The mask makes us happy when we see it. So he is viewing art from the lens of someone from the West looking towards someone from the East, not the East, someone from, a different civilization, and he's placing a value judgment on it because it is not as fits his standard of beauty. And this idea of, does art have to be beautiful, and do you have to sort of understand it? And it's really a powerful conversation that you can have with students. That, anytime I'm studying non-Western cultures with my students, and this what I've been doing this semester is we're kind of going through culture to culture, kind of doing an around the world type of thing with our curriculum. And we studied art from Africa, and they would say things like that it looked weird or they looked scary and stuff like that. And I'm like, I can see how you're say that. We validate their opinion, their feelings on it. But you have to be really careful with like stuff about, calling it weird or that sort of thing. So that's just another sort of aesthetic question to consider, and something that is kind of powerful when you think about it, that our perception of like us versus them, that we are better than them. And like currently, I'm just kind of rambling here at this point, but I just started an Islamic unit with my students this past week. Using, if you're in the resource library, it's using the Islamic art PowerPoint that's in there. I'm about to add some like the other stuff to it, because I've been adding on to it this week. But one of my students, I was getting a lot of terrorist jokes and stuff like that. Not joke, like even jokes, but they were like making a lot of terrorist comments. And so I was shutting those down right and left. But one of the students, and in my intro to tell you about this story, I've already forgotten what I was going to say. I know what student said it. Oh, he kept calling it third world. Like he was like, their third world, over and over again. And I was like, one, Islamic Islamic belief is all over the world. Like people practice it everywhere. It's 23% of the population. Stop calling it third world. You're implying that you are better than them when you're saying that. And I was like, yeah, it was a whole thing. So anyway, these sort of discussions, I think art has the power to really make kids think about the world in different ways. And I think aesthetics, when talked about in your classroom and discussed, gets kids thinking about the world differently. And so I think that's just super powerful, and can really make an impact on students. So that's my little spiel on that. I have a post about that where there's some more quotes, which I should have gotten ready for you. Okay, but I'm going to pull it up right now for kids, because there's some other examples. If you're interested in kind of diving into this idea further, I do have a blog post about it. And then I also have, no, wait, never mind. I was going to say something that's not true. Okay. I thought that this was I had to have a PowerPoint on this, but I don't think I do. I think I started one and I never finished it. So anyway, there is a lesson plan basically that goes through this. It has some other quotes, has like a Mark Twain quote about Hindu art that you can kind of pick through and adjust as you need for your lesson if you're interested in having this conversation with students. It's really a good one to have, especially before talking about non-Western cultures. Okay. The last one, and I'm just going to quickly show you these. The last way to include aesthetics in your art curriculum is to show art that is about art. So I do, on Fridays, I have sort of like an artwork of the week, and I just sort of pick random works of art. It doesn't really have to be related to what we're doing. I just sort of kind of pick one that I want to talk about that week. And then I'm also going to be doing an artwork of the week in my Facebook group that I started, but I haven't been very active in. But there's an art history and art appreciation teachers Facebook group that I sort of started and then I never really followed through. So I'm going to be doing an artwork of the week in there. So anyway, similar to that. So anyway, I'm rambling. Okay. So here's some just artwork about art. And in the aesthetics lesson bundle, which if you registered for this and paid for it, you should have gotten this lesson. It's also in the resource library. You didn't get this lesson if you did the 4 lesson bundle. You only got the webinars. Okay. So anyway, here's some that you might consider for an artwork of the week discussion that are art about art. So here's Michelangelo's Slaves. And in this one, it's really fun because you can see the hand of the artist and you can talk about, art, the quote of Michelangelo, I saw the angel in the marble and I carved until I set him free. And here is you can see his process of like releasing these figures from the marble. So this one is kind of a fun one to look at. And you can actually see like his chisel marks and stuff, which is really cool. And then this one is, okay. All of these have nudity, of course. So come to Tuesday's Facebook Live where I will talk more about nudity. But this one is another one that's art about art. And it's her looking out at us and staring at us while we stare at her. And so it's kind of a fun conversation. Of course, I would not show this one with my middle school students. I don't shy away from nudity, but I think this one in particular, I wouldn't. I probably would only do high school for this one, and college, because it is kind of an important artwork in the history of art. Thank you, Carolyn, for the shout out. Make sure that's Central Standard Time too, so you know that it's 8 p.m. CST. But yeah, the idea of like us looking at her and how weird that kind of is when you can talk about with that one. And then we have, of course, Renee Magritte's "This is not a pipe," because it's not. It's a picture of a pipe. And that is always kind of a fun definition. And you put this in front of students and and you tell them what that says, and they're like, it is a pipe. What are you talking about, miss? And but it's like, no, it's not. And then eventually they figure it out. They're like, oh right, it's not. Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Getting all sorts of great resources this time. Okay, I have all sorts of browser tabs open I can go back and look at. So that's a fun one. It's just kind of a short one. So if you just want like a little short discussion, because you can't really get too much into that. Okay. Here's similar to the one we looked at, Keith Arnett's trouser word piece, "I'm a real artist." So by putting up that sign there, he turns himself into an artist. So that's another one you can discuss. And then, of course, you cannot have any aesthetics discussion without including Marcel Duchamp's fountain. And he took a urinal and put it on its side, signed a fake artist name on it, put a date on it, and put it in an art gallery, and had no hand in the creation of it. And then he created other artworks like this too, which he called ready-mades, which were just basically artists or objects repurposed and placed in art galleries. And he was just really making a joke of everybody of the art world. And so the students always get a huge kick out of this one. And the girls always the boys get a bigger kick out of it, because it's like, they know what that is. Girls don't really know what a urinal looks like. So, is it in Philadelphia? Cause I thought the original no longer existed. I wonder if they recreated it, or maybe he made a copy of it. Like he made another one. Not sure. Because I have just like an old picture that was taken of it before it no longer existed. But I'm not exactly sure. He might have made more than one. So that is one of the most famous aesthetics discussions. And the students really just love it. They think it's just hilarious. Oh, cool. Oh, man. I want to go, but I'm so far from there. And I should have ended on Marcel Duchamp. That would have been a perfect ending. But I also love this one, the innocent eye test, that we have these This one is a really fun one to discuss with students, that we have like these like art curators and art directors, all these old white guys like looking and staring at the cow, like watching him look at a picture of cows, and they're looking for his reaction, and they're like testing it. And I love like the guy with the mop there, like waiting, like he's, um, oh, you did. Oh, so cool. I love this artwork. It just like cracks me up every time. And I love that Monet's haystacks are like next to it. I don't know why, but it's just like I get such a kick out of it. And you got like the scientists in the lab coats, and you've got, all of that. It's a really fun one to discuss with students, like, trying to figure out like, what are they trying to get out of this cow? Like, what are they looking for? And that sort of thing. It's really fun. Oh, Jennifer, sorry. I was like, this is weird that this one would be in Israel. Sorry, I always forget. There's a little bit of a lag from when I say something to when you say, I see when y'all hear it. So I need to remember that. That's really cool that you got to see the Duchamp. So I guess it does exist. I always thought it didn't. So yes, this one is a super fun one too. So art about art. I also have a blog post about that as well. I'll put the link for you. Art about art. See if that pulls it up. Yep, there it is. Oh no, this is not it. This is different ones, different examples. I think I did 2 of these. Where's the other one? Well, I don't know where that link is, but I do have another link with different artworks, so I will share that too. These are artworks that reference other artworks. So, also fun. Okay, so that is it on aesthetics. An hour and a half. I will change the certificate of participation to reflect an hour and a half. So if you've already downloaded it, you can download another one, and I'll change it today. Probably look for it tomorrow, because I'm going to redo it. And then the next session is on May 20th, same time, Saturday, May 20th, and we are going to talk about African sculpture. So we're going to do an art history topic. So that'll be fun. We're going to go through like probably 3 or 4 different types of African sculpture from different areas of Africa, and learn about those, as well as I'll tell you a little bit about the lesson that I did about African sculpture. So if you register, you can get the lesson that the PowerPoint and the lesson materials as well for that lesson. So that will be on May 20th. So it's $14, or if you are a member, you get it in free, obviously. So remember to click webinars from your member dashboard, and then you can register for it there. It's already there, ready to be registered for. And if you're not a member, just go to artcuratorforkids.com/Africa. And I do have that one available in the offers. I remember I did load that link. So if you click over on offers, you'll see a link to access that registration. That's for if you are not a member. If you are a member, you have to click webinars, because it's in a locked page. Okay, so if you have any questions, I would love to stick around and answer them. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming today. Thank you for your active participation. I got a lot of good ideas from you, and I hope that you were inspired to go out and talk about aesthetics with your students and get their awesome and creative thoughts on this, because it is always an interesting discussion, no matter the group of students. So thank you very much. And have a lovely weekend. You're welcome. I'm glad. Hope to see you again. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for staying up into the middle of the night. I told you it was going to be an hour, and that it might. I didn't think it was just going to go over an hour, and then I lied. Yeah, you want this PowerPoint? Yes, I can put that in the resource library if you would like this PowerPoint. But also, if you're a member, I will show you. Let me just show you where you can get this because this is all in the resource library. So I'll just go ahead and pull it up and show you how to find it. Let me change my screen share to something. Okay. So we're going to go over to the member dashboard, click your content and resource library access, which I don't know that I'm logged in, so it might not let me in. Hold on a second. Okay. Okay. When you're here in the resource library, you just click resource library access, and then you go down to the training will show up here. And then the certificate of participation will be here. But if you go to aesthetics lessons, basically everything we did today is in this aesthetics bundle. So you'll see why study art, what is art with the puzzles, and then also student handouts that have the puzzles about art in them. So like if you see here, like, oh no, this is the what is art essay. What in the world? That's not what I clicked on, was it? Are these files messed up? Oh no, that I just clicked the wrong thing. Puzzles about our group work activity sheet is what I meant to click. And so this is what you can print and like give to your kids to answer to the different groups. So you can see, oops, let me click back. And then, all of like the art about art is there. And then there's an object analysis one, which I noticed that had some broken links. So I think I probably will update this today into the new format and put the images. So I'll probably update this one today. So I wouldn't download it until tomorrow. And then that's what I'll work on this afternoon. So yeah, it's all here. Yeah. And then there's a lesson plan too. And the lesson plan has quiz questions, assessment questions as well. So yes, there you go. And then also here's if you go back to our Google Docs link there. Yeah, I can put that. Yeah. You know what? That's a good idea. I don't think I've been doing that. So this presentation I will put here. Or have I been doing that? I don't remember. Yeah, I haven't, but that's a good idea. I will put the PowerPoint on the same page as the recording as well. Yes. So by tomorrow, this will all be updated I will add the new one with the PowerPoint, and then I will update the aesthetics lessons a little bit. Yes, once I do it, I'll do a recent update, and then I'll link everything. But it'll also be here. If you go to online workshops, it'll say Unit 3, online training. What is art? Yeah. You're welcome. Have a great day. Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to email me. Otherwise, have a lovely evening or no rest of your day, depending on what time it is in your part of the world. And I will talk to you again soon. Goodbye.